Today I want to talk about minimal marking, which is an idea that arises in the context of responding to student writing. Very often professors will collect student writing and the question then arises, what now? How should I respond to this writing? The specific answer to these questions will depend on the course, what the goals of the course are, and what the goals of the assignment are. But in general, the idea with minimal marking is that it does not make sense for a professor to respond to all student errors. This is not a good use of the professor's time, nor is it an efficient way for students to learn. Instead, a pattern of errors should be identified. To work with this concrete example, let's imagine that students have produced 2 pages of writing and that they are having trouble with subject-verb agreement. Professor could then correct 1 or 2 paragraphs on each student's paper where the student has made subject-verb agreement errors. A class lesson could then cover subject-verb agreement, and the students could be asked to correct the other errors that occur on their papers. This would be a good use of minimal marking. Another way to employ minimal marking is to simply make a check mark next to the place where students have made errors. Again, it makes sense to identify a pattern of errors, but now the student has the responsibility to identify what the specific error is. This makes most sense in cases where it's reasonable to assume that students can identify the errors and also correct them. But oftentimes student errors are due to carelessness as opposed to an underlying lack of knowledge. This can also be a good use of minimal marking. In general, minimal marking will allow professors to efficiently use their time and students to most effectively learn. Let me conclude with 2 additional points. I focused in this talk on errors and a specific type of errors, namely grammatical errors. But it also makes sense for professors to respond to student writing in other ways. For example, if students are early on in a project that may lead up to a final paper, it can make sense for professors to talk with students about high-level content or ideas. Students who understand what they're writing about, who understand their thesis, will often write more effectively. And finally, though I focused on errors, it can be a good idea for professors to give students praise. Students who only hear what's wrong with their work can easily become discouraged, whereas a bit of praise can go a long way.